Cummins Engines is one of the most innovative engine manufacturers of our time. With over 100 years in history, Cummins today is still a popular choice among truck owners, and they continue to roll in record sales. In fact, in 2023, Cummins had its best sales year ever. But it's not been all sunshine and roses for Cummins. So today we're going to look at the good, the bad, and the ugly side of Cummins engines. Before we get into the good, the bad, and the ugly of the Cummins engines, let me give you a little bit of background, a little bit of history on the Cummins engines. In 1919, in Columbus, Indiana, a mechanic named Plessy Cummins decided he was going to modify and improve on the original diesel designed by Rudolph Diesel 20 years earlier. In 1921, Plessy patented his first engine as the F model engine, and then later improved upon that and repatented it in 1928 as the U model engine, and this was the engine that Plessy used in his famous diesel trip from New York City to LA. In 1931, Plessy had enough confidence in his engine to take it on a cross-country road trip from New York City to Los Angeles. He took two friends with him to switch off as they drove. They covered that 3,100-mile distance in 97 hours, and this was before they'd built the interstate system. It was a record-breaking trip. It is interesting to note, as a side story, that on this trip, coming down the Cajon Pass with his friends, Plessy realized that he had no efficient way to slow this diesel truck down. He nearly got in trouble, nearly had a wreck, and he realized he was going to have to invent something, which he later did, to slow that engine down, and later he invented the Jacobs brake. After this historical trip, Cummins went into full production, sold their first models to Kenworth in 1932, and Cummins continued on a progressive win, engine after engine, for truck after truck of successful diesel truck engines. Let's look at the good stuff from Cummins. Certainly the H model engines were good for Cummins. They were so good, in fact, that Cummins introduced the first ever 100,000 mile warranty into the truck engine manufacturing business. They went on in the late 1950s to add a turbo to the H model, improving it even more because it increased the horsepower. In 1959, Cummins introduced the 350 Cummins engine, and it was a marked up in horsepower from the last H model because they needed to compete with Caterpillar, who had just entered the market, introduced their 1693 motor, and it was stronger than anything Cummins had, so they upped their game and entered the 350. But the 350, even though it was a good engine, developed occasionally cam issue problems. The cam was too small. Cummins then went on to introduce the big cam series of engines, and all of those engines were hits. As well, Cummins introduced their KTA engine, which was a 700 horse plus engine that Cummins had originally designed for installation in tugboats and things like that. But because they were so powerful, they became popular with the long hood truck crowd, so they could install them special order into the W900A or the 359 long hood Pete's. These engines were so good and became so valuable that they're still sought after by collectors and truck engine enthusiasts today. Finally, in the late 1980s, Cummins introduced their N14, which the crowd liked to call the red top motor, and it was arguably the best engine out of all of them that Cummins produced. Up until 1959, Cummins had been building the best engines on the market, bar none. But when Caterpillar jumped into the market, Cummins began to struggle. Up until 1959, Cummins dominated the diesel engine market. They were producing the best diesel engines available. So now that we've talked about the good engines that Cummins produced up until 1959, we need to talk about the bad engines Cummins started making after Caterpillar got into the market, because Cummins was having trouble competing with Cat. Caterpillar had recently come out with their 3406B engine, which just knocked Cummins back on their heels. They had to catch up, and they produced what they called the 444 motor. Now, by all reports, a few owner-operators said that they really loved the 444, got like 1.5 million miles on them. But the overall consensus of the 444 was that it was a bad engine. It had breakdown issues, and all sorts of trouble. So we're going to class the 444 as the first engine that Cummins produced that wasn't up to standard. After a few years of the 444, Cummins realized they'd screwed up and brought out the ISX engine, which proved to be a little better. And again, there were some reports that some owner-operators had really good luck with them. But again, the overall consensus of the ISX was it wasn't a great motor. They then came out with the X15, their answer to everything according to Cummins, and the X15 was a dog in most instances. It suffered from all sorts of issues. The X15 suffered from electrical issues, ceramic fuel pump explosion issues, cam bearing issues, camshafts issues, sensor issues, and just general all-in electrical trouble issues. They weren't a good motor. The early X15 motors, in fact, were so bad that dealers were discouraging their customers from ordering one in their new trucks. And all sorts of guys listened to the dealers and stepped away and ordered Detroit engines or PACCAR engines instead. Cummins stuck with their X15 platform, and gradually it began to improve in reliability. It was never the hot seller they intended it to be. And another one of the problems that Cummins had with their new X15 motors was the Cummins warranty. Now we need to talk about the ugly part of the Cummins engine. The Cummins warranty was downright ugly. Their biggest competitor, Caterpillar, offered a 500,000-mile warranty, all-inclusive. All their dealers were on board with it, and they treated their customers fairly on the warranty issues. Cummins, not so much. Not only did Cummins stick to their 100,000-mile warranty, they were rigid about it. They would warranty parts only if they felt the engine hadn't been abused. They wouldn't warranty the labor. They would argue the fact with customers as to whether it was eligible for warranty or not, and they weren't particularly interested in good customer care. I experienced this ugly warranty personally. I took back my big cam engine a week after the 100,000-mile warranty ran out. The engine had dropped the liner, and Cummins refused to give me warranty on it, even though it was only out by a week. I ended up paying the full price for that warranty work, but I never forgot it. Today, Cummins is starting to manufacture both an engine that will run on natural gas and an engine that will run on hydrogen. Now, they're doing this to satisfy the mandates of the EPA for zero emissions engines. But it's going to be ugly because neither one of these engines have been tried or tested. It takes years to get the bugs out of the new motors. So these first initial engines on natural gas and hydrogen will be an ugly disaster, and there's a good chance the hydrogen one will just explode. Last year, Cummins had sales in excess of $34 billion. They are now the largest truck engine manufacturer in the world. So there you have it. Before the emissions regulations came in, Cummins produced the best diesel engines on the market. After the EPA got involved, the quality of the Cummins engines went downhill. When Caterpillar got into the market, Cummins struggled so hard to compete that they almost went under. Happily for Cummins, Caterpillar bowed out in 2010, and Cummins was able to survive, but only just barely. Today, Cummins continues to flourish, but it's not because they're producing great engines. It's because Caterpillar bowed out, it narrowed the market, and truck buyers now have fewer choices of engines that they can choose. If they can't get a PACCAR in the truck that they want, or they can't get a Detroit in the truck that they want, they've got no other choice to go to Cummins. They do go to Cummins, and hence Cummins still survives and prospers. At the end of the day, Cummins is not the quality engine manufacturer that it once was. Stay safe, keep the rubber side down, and I'll see you on the backhaul.